Friends, we have 3 months remaining in 2025. Sorry for that jump scare there, but time does pass. You know, that's kind of what time does, is it passes. So I have already met my 100 book goal for the year. I will most likely meet my 150 book goal for the year. So I figured one last challenge before the end of the year, because I am a glutton for punishment. What we're going to try and do is finish all of the physical books that I have accumulated throughout this year by randomly walking into bookstores and buying stuff that I probably shouldn't have bought, because I have a TBR that is increasingly longer and longer. But I walk into a bookstore, I see books that seem interesting, and I buy them. I'm sorry, I have a sickness. I'm sure many of you have that sickness as well. So we're going to talk through, I think it's like 20, maybe 25. We'll see. Hopefully we'll be able to get through all these. A couple starting off, we are going to talk about 2 biographies. Sorry as I reach off into the void over here. First and foremost, Henry V. Very excited about this one. I have read, what have I read by Dan Jones? I feel that I have read something by Dan Jones, but at this point in my life, I can't remember. Regardless, I listened to an interview with him talking about his journey to write Henry V, his journey to understand the Plantagenets, that family that shaped a lot of English history. So English history, as I've talked about in the past, is not something that I have really delved into, that I have a strong, firm understanding of. How many times can I say that I was a history major who focused on Latin America and East Asia? Obviously, does not include England, so I do not have such a firm grasp, so I'm trying to backfill some of that information. So excited to get to that one. And then we have the behemoth, Ron Chernow's, holy moly, Mark Twain. This is up in the air for me, because I am not the biggest Mark Twain fan in general. So I'm kind of wondering, why should I read a 800-900 page biography of Mark Twain? I don't know. I bought it because I enjoy Ron Chernow's research. His writing is really good. He's written, I think he wrote a Jefferson biography that I read that was pretty fantastic. So I figured, I like the author. Let's give that a go. All right, moving right along. We're going to try and move through this pretty quick. Next up, continuing the Erik Larson journey. I have read quite a few by Erik Larson. This is Dead Wake, about the crossing of the Lusitania, used to kind of justify America's entry into World War I. I have read Devil in the White City, Splendid and Vile, Demon of Unrest, and In the Garden of the Beasts. So just trying to be a completionist and finish up all of Erik Larson stuff. I wouldn't say that this topic incredibly interests me. Not a huge World War I guy, but I think anything that Larson writes, his writing is so incredibly singular in the popular history genre that I am willing to give that a go. Next up, this is really funny because I accidentally read the first in this series, Eric Hobsbawm, The Age of Capital. This is a 3-part left-leaning economic history. This covers 1848 to 1875, a pretty harrowing piece of American history specifically, but global history as well. This period is pretty fraught with a lot of changes to agrarian society, economic society, the industrialization of the modern world. There's just a ton of stuff to touch on. And the first one is The Age of Revolution, which is 1789 to 1848. I read that one thinking that it was going to be more of a, play-by-play of a lot of the revolutions that went on during that time period, the American Revolution, the French Revolution, to name a few. I enjoyed that book quite a bit. I listened to it. So I felt that I didn't get as much. When I'm reading nonfiction specifically, I like to get the book in my hands. I like to be able to cross-reference some of the bibliography, some of the sources, some of the references. I like to just hold a nonfiction book. I'm weird like that. I need to have the physical. So I went back and bought the physical copy of Age of Revolutions, went back through that, and now we're going to go on to Age of Capital. I'm quite interested to see where he goes with this, because it's definitely an economic history, but there's a lot of, humanist history in these books as well, or at least there was in the Age of Revolution. And then the third in the trilogy is the Age of Extremes. Obviously, this ends 1875. We're going to get into a couple world wars, I would imagine, and it ends with 1991, so it's a huge section of history, but excited to read that one. All right, moving on. We've got a massive tome We've got India, A History by John Key. You would not be able to tell by looking at me, but I am a quarter Indian. Yes, that is right. I am 1/4 Indian. And I have always felt maybe not disconnected from my heritage. I've always known that I have had this, Indian heritage, but I don't really know much about the ancient history of the region. I know more about the English occupation, the rift between India and Pakistan, all that stuff that is more modern, that kind of has more of a modern play in our society. I came across this, like I said, just in a bookstore and was like, how many pages of references is in this? Not many. I mean, that's the references. So we've got a big 600-page tome that we're going to try and get through. But I believe that this is just like kind of a 10,000-foot view of India from, ancient civilization. Let's see. Yeah, 321 BC. Oh no, it goes even before. Oh my goodness gracious. We're starting 1900 BC and we're just going. So excited to kind of sink my teeth into this. Hopefully, I hate the phrase get in touch with my roots because, it was 3 generations of Indian history. You don't need my family history here, but just I've always felt a little bit of a pull. I have enjoyed Indian film, Bollywood. I've enjoyed the history of India that I have consumed in the past. So excited to get kind of an overview. And then what I like to do after I get a big overview of a subject is then drill down into specific pieces of that history that I think that I will enjoy further. All right, we've got a huge stack here. I'm going to bring a couple of these over. Adventures in the Screen Trade by William Golden. I have actually read this already, but I'm going to reread. This has the entire Butch Cassidy. Yes, this has the entire Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid screenplay, which is an Oscar-winning screenplay, one of the best movies I've ever seen. I wonder if it would hold up to a modern audience. Not 100% sure. I love William Golden. I love his scripts, and I love the way that he writes about making movies. And this is kind of a, I guess, memoir instruction booklet, kind of like Making Movies, the book that I read by Sidney Lumet earlier this year. So excited to go back through that. If you've been following the channel, you know that I'm continuing to build out my Western American canon. And so we're going to go through Blood and Thunder by Hampton Sides, the story of Kit Carson and the conquest of the American West. I have been doing a nonfiction and a fiction about the founding of the American West or the mythology of the American West. So I just recently finished a reread of Blood Meridian, which, knocks you on your socks every time that you read it. And so the final nonfiction in that, giant year-long project of the American West is going to be Blood and Thunder. I'm very excited to get into that. Next up, Remains of the Day, Kazuo Ishiguro. I read something of his. Clara and the Sun, maybe? That was his, I think. I can't remember. I've read a lot of books this year. But this is widely thought of as, his best. I have a used copy with a ton of annotations. I don't know if you can even see that, but I'm excited to read this person's annotations. This is the fun of going into a used bookstore and just grabbing a bunch of stuff is you'll get, just fantastic annotations in some of this stuff. And I feel like that, I enjoy that. I like reading that. It's kind of like a message in a bottle type thing between two readers from past and present. And then we have Heart of a Dog by Bulgakov. This is a book, a Russian text that my wife has been dying for me to read, so I'm excited to get into that. We bond quite a bit on Russian literature. I would say it's probably top 3 favorite genre, Russian literature, if that counts. Moving on. Annihilation, James Vandermeer. I fell in love with this movie. I have heard that the book is quite different, so I'm excited to see how that feels. Funny story, I saw the movie with the author's wife in the same theater as me because I went to film school in Tallahassee, and this takes place in that kind of panhandle area type deal. So his wife and a couple of his friends were in there, and they started clapping at the end of the movie, and I was very confused as to why. And then people told me, oh yeah, that's the author's wife. Next up, Erasure, another one that I fell in love with the movie. The movie adaptation is called American Fiction. This is Percival Everett. I've really been getting into a lot of his stuff recently. I read, I think his most recent book, I can't remember. Again, we're just all over the place. Regardless, I find his writing to be pretty fantastic. This is about a black author who is kind of disillusioned with where the popular push for black work is going. more mainstream, more commodified in a way kind of written for white audiences. So he takes on this persona that is like just, it's an incredible satire of popular media. Just, if you've seen the film Get Out, imagine a lot of the coastal elite white liberal satire that's going on in Get Out. That is very much a part of Erasure, or at least a part of American Fiction. I'm excited to see if it reads as scathingly on the page as it did in the film. Thomas Pynchon, Crying of Lot 49. So we got a good mix of long and short here. This is a little bit of a shorter novel, although Pynchon is very dense. I read Vineland earlier this year, absolutely fell in love with Pynchon and went out and bought a couple. I have Inherent Vice here as well, so we got a twofer. Just, you know, I just can't wait to read everything and anything that this man writes. Keeping this rolling, let's see what we got. Misreading Scripture with Western Eyes. I'm very, very interested to read this, get a deeper understanding of the Bible. I have always found I guess a pushback against a lot of Western Christianity, so I'm excited to read this, to learn how to read the Bible from a cultural perspective that maybe it was more intended to be read from. So excited to sink my teeth into this. Larry McMurtry, Streets of Laredo. I'm doing a re-listen to Lonesome Dove at some point, so I wanted to get more McMurtry in here, and I read that Streets of Laredo is a good place to go. Obviously, because it is the end of, I guess, it's Lonesome Dove first, and then so there's two in the middle. I don't know. I need to do a little bit more research on that one, because I don't want to just jump in if this is just in the middle of it. Let's see. Final book of Larry McMurtry's Lonesome Dove tetralogy. Okay, well, we may have to add a couple of this. Maybe we take a pause on this one. Last two. The Essential Schopenhauer, Arthur Schopenhauer, a philosopher that I have no basis of understanding of. So sometimes I just like to, you know, jump into something and try and figure it out. And that's the great thing about YouTube, is I can watch a couple, you know, Schopenhauer intros and try and get as much out of his philosophical thought as possible. I have found myself, as I continue to age, continue to face some of the life's bigger questions as a parent, as a husband, trying to maneuver my way through the bigger questions in life. So I really don't have a philosophical school of thought that I ascribe to. So I'm kind of in my searching phase, trying to figure some stuff out. So I'm excited to read that. Finally, another recommendation from my wife. I don't know if you can see this. Shadow of the Wind. Apparently this is a fantastic novel. My wife, my father-in-law, everybody I talk to has been bigging this book up. So I'm excited to finally get to read it. Let's see. I think that was 20. I'm not going to go ahead and count them, but I've got 3 months. I've been reading about 20 books a month average. Sorry if you're not cool with knuckle cracking there. My apologies. So I think that I'll be able to get through a lot of this stuff. Now, I have been leaning a lot on audiobooks for that. So these are all physical books, obviously. So I got to get going. I would love to hear what your reading goals for the last 3 months of the year are. Do you have specific books that you're trying to get through? Have you already met your reading goal for the year? Do you set reading goals, or are you not a crazy person like me? I would like to hear all of those things in the comments. Thanks for hanging out with me. Just a casual video talking you through what I hope to finish by the end of the year. I have had so much fun reading all of these books and talking to you fine folks about them. If you have recommendations for next year that you would like me to check out, please leave them in the comments below. Thank you for watching. I hope you're reading something very, very good, and I will see you in the next video.